and welcome to the Plenty of Positivity podcast. I am your host, Courtney Beck, and today we have Dr. Diana Londoño. Dr. Londoño is a physician, a published author, and a keynote speaker. It is my absolute pleasure and honor to welcome Dr. Diana Londoño.
Well, good morning. And Courtney, thank you so much for having me on your space, your podcast. I am excited to see, where we go with this and really just talk about some really fun stuff and stuff that really can help other people, from our lived experience. And I think it's going to be just really wonderful. So thank you for having me.
I am so excited for this, Diana, because your energy is electric and you really are. You're like the perfect guest for positivity. So, a big welcome, and I'd love to jump right into it. So, why don't we start with an introduction and a background of yourself?
Yeah, so my day job is urology. I'm a surgeon, and there's not a lot of us in our field, which is actually our superpower. And it's the really fun thing about it. We can look at things one way or another way. Maybe that's how you start with positivity, that there's only 10% of us women who are urologists. And I think that's amazing. Again, I think this is a superpower, it's a strength, is what makes us unique. And I think that's how we have to look at life, is not where we are lacking or what we don't have or what there's not enough, but like, what do we have? What do we bring to the table? And that is truly, again, our superpower. So that's how we should really be looking at life, not what we are lacking, but what do we have? And so that's my day job. I'm also really passionate about wellness in general, just from, my own burnout and what I learned through that process, which was really just understanding first of all what it was, what it is, chronic unmanaged stress leading to burnout. And that is something that in medical school at UCLA, I didn't learn anything about. I didn't really learn about trauma and stress and even nutrition. And that is really tragic in ways. But the good news is we can learn. We can continue to learn, as we go on and really understand the power of our mind and how that really will lead to disease or wellness. And so really it has been my journey to learn how to get out of that place, how to rebuild, and like what are the things I did to get to a better place. And I think it's applicable to anybody because burnout is a pandemic in itself, no matter what field you're in. So this is really important to, really take account of that this is not normal, that we are addicted to stress, and like what are we going to do to get out of it?
That's so true. I love how you speak about just burnout, and I do think that that's something I want to jump into in this podcast because I am sure that a lot of people have probably experienced it within maybe their career, just in their life. So we'll certainly get into that. I would love to begin with laying the foundation down. I know you and I have spoke about collegiate athletics, and you were a cross country runner. So I'm just curious about the lessons perhaps that you learned in sport and how you were able to transfer those lessons into your professional career.
Yeah, there are so many lessons there. I mean, I think there's humility, there is obviously hard work, there is, teamwork. Even though cross country is, a sport where you're by yourself, it really is about the team. And, it really is about, it doesn't matter what you see right now. We talked about this before. Your reality is, you got to dream what you want in the future, even if right now it doesn't look like it. For cross country, I went to a college where it's Division 3. So you're not, recruited with money. You're maybe recruited, but you're not like paid or given tuition, but you're still recruited. And I really was the only one not recruited. I just decided to call and say, hey, I want to do cross country. And my coach was like, what? Okay, well, if you do, this is it. The hours and the miles you have to run for the summer, they're 500. So do the work and show up. And so I did. I mean, I did the work. I started a little late because that's when I called. I had no idea this process started earlier. And I just showed up every day and did my, miles every day. You had to like mail them in. That's how we used to do it. And, you would record them as a little postcard, mail them in every week, and they would tally them. And then I showed up. And even people that were recruited, actually ended up quitting. I mean, there's quite a few people that quit, but like I was the last person, on the team. I was the last, dead last runner, but I was like, that's okay. I'm still going to show up. It doesn't matter if I'm last. And, I put in my time. And when I ended as a senior, I qualified for nationals. So, that's sort of how far you had to go to get there, but it didn't matter. Like I didn't care that I was last. I didn't care that, I wasn't recruited, but I was like, I'm going to show up and do the work. And I think that it's just a good lesson to learn that, put the time and the effort, consistency of the time and effort, and like you'll get to that goal, whatever that is for you. It doesn't have to be obviously, athletics, but whatever it is. So that was a huge, lesson for me. And another huge lesson was when I did qualify for nationals, that was huge. I had never qualified before. I finally did it my senior year, and I was the alternate actually. And I was the alternate because that last race to qualify, I got really sick. I got a cold. Then I like went back down. So I was the alternate instead of being on the top seven. And that really, really stung me because then I was alternate. It was so close. And I remember when we were just now practicing, the eight of us with the alternate be myself, like the alternate would fly to wherever, to nationals, no matter what, even if you were not going to be needed. But I sort of had this sourpuss attitude, like ma, like I should have gone and I didn't, and I went into this whole bad attitude that my coach really felt and knew. And so he basically called me out and he said, you know what, you're not going to go to nationals, you're going to show up here and you're still gonna do the work, but you're not gonna fly. And I was like, and he's like, you decide what you're gonna do. And then I said, I had to take a little bit of a humble pie and realize like my attitude was, where it got me there. And did I want to change it and still put the effort and help my teammates, even if I was not going to go, or I was going to still be a sourpuss? And I decided, okay, I'm still going to do the work, help them by training with them to get them to a better place, but realize I'm not going to go, and that's okay too. So it really stung my ego. It was painful. It was embarrassing. I had like, almost shame, but it was a very, very important lesson. And it was done out of love and out of like calling out, poor behavior that wasn't really teamwork. So I'm really grateful for my coach that, taught me that. And I think we can learn that in any like situation in life.
That's so true. I really do. I feel like so many lessons could be learned in any sport. And I commend you for running in like cross country in general, because I did it for a short stint in high school. And when you talk about like coming in last initially, I was always last, always like at every meet. But I just did it because number one, it was something new. And it was a challenge. That's what I love about that sport. But I commend you because cross country runners are very hardcore. I learned that very quickly. And I also got to see a cross country race in college, and they give everything until like that finish line. It's unbelievable. So I commend you for that. And I do want to get into, because it's incredible what you have accomplished. We will certainly get into awards and accolades, but to first begin, you mentioned that you are a urologist. And as far as stats go, I just want to reiterate that. I think it's incredible. You are one of the 10% of urologists in the United States who is a woman, and 0.5% who is a woman and Latina. So, to first begin with this, did you always know you wanted to go into medicine?
No, not at all. I mean, that really happened in college, and it's a little bit of a long story. But my parents separated. My dad was in Mexico. We were in the States, and then when my dad died when I was 21, I was in college. I mean, that really sort of shifted my mindset of what I wanted to do. Initially, I wanted to do politics, and that's what my school was about. It was Claremont McKenna, a lot of international relations, economics, and that's not actually something I do like, but I thought, oh, politics, which funny enough, medicine is all politics. So I think I definitely went in the right field of politics. But it really wasn't that place where I saw my dad change completely from, such a, in a way, vain and like very good looking, man that's proud of his appearance, to somebody that was, in a wheelchair, in diapers, really debilitated from what was later sort of found out that was metastatic prostate cancer. So, it wasn't urology then at that point. I didn't even know what urology was, but it really made me look at when we are ill, when we are, sick, how do we deal with people's dignity? Do we still think about what makes them them and what gives them joy? Is it that they have their cologne, that they have their, favorite things? Because when you're sick, you have that ugly gown, half of your back is showing, you really feel vulnerable and you don't feel quite like yourself. So it really made me think about like, what do we do every day? And I had no idea about medicine, but what can we do to really restore that dignity? That's really what propelled me to go into medicine, not getting accolades and awards and being the best surgeon and, my ego getting huge. It really was, what is that human interaction? And that is really truly a sacred thing to have that with people, especially, in illness, but of course in everyday interactions. So that's sort of how I went into medicine and urology, later. Just I thought it was kind of like the fun group of surgeons. They're a little lighthearted. There's not horrible emergencies all the time. It's not all depressing. There's a lot of, fun and lighthearted things you help people with. So I didn't want to do the doom and gloom, of neurosurgery and, brain tumors and things like that. But I wanted to do something that was still meaningful, but not so heavy.
Absolutely. And in continuation with this topic, you certainly pride yourself on bringing humanity to your interactions as a physician. So, could you maybe just elaborate on that?
Yeah, I think this is for any human. I think the key of that is really presence, and presence means actually, love, and love takes energy. And so if you don't love, for example, your patient, it's very challenging to be present because that takes energy. And again, energy is a form of love. That's how you give love, is by presence and energy. That's if you have children or your spouse, if you're not paying attention to what they're saying and listening actively, not listening to fix or listening to talk over them, but truly listening, that is how you are present with somebody. So for me, I love my patients. I mean, that's just like what I really feel every day. It's not like I love my abilities and I mean, I love the people I get the privilege to speak to every single day. I love the privilege that they tell me things that are really important to them, and that I can use whatever I learned to try to figure out, what's going on and give them a solution and help people. And the solution many times is not fixing per se, it's just listening. It is letting people tell you about their suffering, their frustration, their anger. And that is healing. And sometimes we can't fix, even as a surgeon, we want to fix things and do things. But sometimes the fixing is just being present, having that silence, that moment where you're not speaking, and letting those emotions just be there, and, like, be there without that judgment when they share things.
Oh, absolutely. And I have been on this topic about presence and listening. And that's something I have to work on too, because I get so excited when I'm in conversations. But I really do. I think it's so important today. Technology set aside, but being like one on one with somebody, if in fact you can, like in person, because with so much like distractions and noise, I think it really offers the person that sense of like value, that you belong here. I'm here to listen to you and whatever they may be going through. Because I always like to reflect on the times that somebody's been there for me and how that has made me feel if I'm going through a hard time. But presence and listening, I think that's like talk about like when you talk about love, like that really is offering your love to somebody, especially today, because like I said, it's just we're all connected through technology. You could always be doing something, you could always be listening to something, but to really be present with that person. So happy that you mentioned that. And I want to ask you though, specifically within medicine. So I did mention it, but you've had just numerous awards and honors, Patient Experience Excellence Award more than once, and then the Physician Leadership Award as well. But your journey in medicine, what have you learned about yourself, and what do these awards mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think, we all like awards. Some people say it's like makes us feel good, the dopamine, but, it makes our ego like, oh, I'm so important or so valuable. But I think, I mean, for example, the patient award, I mean, that in a way it's sad because it becomes this transaction where we're performing to get these points. We're performing to get these scores that, we're not there as the problem is with that is like we're there, we become a service provider. And I also hate that word that they're called, physicians are called providers. I don't provide internet or this or that. I mean, I heal and teach. So when we have these scoring systems, it's a little bit of a double-edged sword,
Yeah.
because I don't think we should be providing that. I think we should be listening, teaching, healing. And sometimes when we do that, we may not get the best scores because people are not ready to, listen to some things that may be, painful. They want to just kind of hear what they want to hear and not maybe what is best. So it could be a double-edged sword that way. But at the same time, it does give me just so much joy, you know, I mean, those are health grades. You can go to health grades and see like 5.0 star ratings. You can go to my website and see like real video testimonials of patients. They're just so heartwarming, what they say, and what they really give to me as a gift, of what they say, about our care and our interactions and our friendship and relationship. So to me, it just fills me with joy that we were able to connect. I was able to listen. I helped them in some way. And it just, that just gives me purpose and makes me feel fulfilled and really humbled, honestly. So that's what that one sort of, I feel about that. And the leadership award, that was a huge, huge, huge honor. And, there's so many physicians in Los Angeles County. And so to be selected as one of them for a leadership award, that really was, humbling. And it was for work I did with a platform for physician support that I ran for 3 years, which was a huge learning experience and just, a lot of, work, but like soul aligned work. So, it really was just really humbling to get that award. And I'm just really, really grateful for the association to honor me with that. I don't know. I was a little bit speechless, but really, really humbled.
No, it's truly incredible. That's why I had to mention it. I mean, going on your website too, and all the accolades, what you've published. I mean, the list truly goes on, and I think that that speaks volumes. Just about, and this is kind of going into my next question, but I always am hesitant to say the word balance. I feel like it's like work life harmony, but being so successful in your career and you have two girls, beautiful girls, how do you manage like that, like really that sense of harmony between your career and being ultra successful, but then also managing time spent with your family?
I think we have to do a bit of a time audit. I hear so many people have I'll say complicated relationship with time, always saying there's not enough time. I don't have time for this, and it's a scarcity mindset. And when we switch it to realizing, even when we speak to somebody to say, I have plenty of time, let's find a time because I have plenty of it, because that's actually true. Then we sort of change this whole thing like there's just not enough. How can we manage it all? And then we start getting like frazzled like a squirrel, like, like in a panic mode. But when we switch it and get out of this, like, squirrel mode of panic and realize there's plenty of time to do whatever you need to do. And also, again, you can do a time audit. You can really sit down and write down what are you spending your time on daily and then for the week, and then realize, wow, there's like 4 hours of Instagram scrolling. Then I say, there's not enough time. You can keep it, that's not a problem, but then have the awareness that you truly have a lot of time. And maybe like if you're saying you want to build a relationship with your kids, instead of doing that, you can spend more time with them or your family, or whatever you want to do. Or you say, oh, I don't have time to exercise. Again, not enough time. But if you do that audit and you see that 2 hour gap, you were kind of doing that much, you can use that to, put that effort and the time and intention in that. So I think starting with that, we start realizing that there's plenty of it. And I think awareness of anything is the first step. And then it's truly the action and the courage to do something different. Because we can have all the awareness in the world and know that it is a problem. But if we don't take action, if we don't change, then I don't know. Like that's a little bit of like issue with integrity. Like if you have new awareness, new information, but you keep doing the same thing, well, that's not integrity. And that's sort of the definition of insanity. You're doing the same thing, expecting different results. So it's, just thinking about it a little more and not just thinking, looking, being aware, but what are you going to do differently?
No, absolutely. That's such a good point because, like, even when you talk about social media, I really do. I think it's so important. Like, particularly block off a certain amount of time and I attend to that. And then it's whatever the next task is. And I think that's helped me. But you're right. I mean, you could be on there and before you know it, I mean, like an hour, 2 hours have passed and you're like, whoa. So being mindful of that, I think that's like a really good point. My next question, because something I've noticed just with the way that you work is that when you spot something that either needs to be fixed, like you not only like really look at like statistics and stuff, but that you also take action and you do something about it. And I mentioned that with regards to burnout, just the topic of burnout. And you certainly had, I was just looking up like a burnout journey, and it actually inspired you, though, to become a certified life coach and Reiki master and Chronic, if I'm pronouncing that
Chronic,
correctly.
chronic. Mhm.
There we go. Healer. So could you maybe just elaborate on this journey, your burnout journey, and how you were able to pull out something positive from it?
Yeah, I think everything has a silver lining, and maybe that is a whole thing of positivity that things don't happen to us; they happen for us. Whatever we go through, we can extract that lesson if we want to do that, or we can just simmer in negativity and cynicism and just doom and gloom. I mean, that's one option, but that option is not really good, and it's not good for your health. But we can choose that all day. However, when I was in burnout, it's not really fun. I mean, you're mentally, physically, spiritually, you're like in a really dark place because you're cynical. You have body pains, you have chest pain, you have hair falling out, you have teeth grinding. I mean, it has so many things. You become pretty soon like autoimmune disease, like your body attacks itself because of the chronic stress hormones. So I had that too. I mean, I had what's called a rheumatoid factor. You see this in autoimmune diseases, for rheumatoid arthritis, and I was 43, 42. That's very young to be having these things. But if you're in chronic stress, that's exactly what's going to happen. It's going to lower your immunity. You're going to have colds all the time. You're going to, have pretty soon, cancer because you can't repair your own body, mechanism because that repair system is gone. You're in fight or flight. You're in survival mode. So over time, it's going to cause real physical problems and diseases. So I wanted to get out of that. I didn't want to be cynical, negative. And so I decided, okay, well, what's happening? Like, I don't even understand what's happening. One, I had no awareness. I was in burnout or cynical. So it had to be pointed out to me. Two, then I'm like, okay, but like, how did I get here? How do I get out? So I started reading again. I mean, reading is one of my big joys. And I started reading like crazy, like, so many books, hundreds of books per year of, understanding what is happening to my mind, what is happening to my body, how is the mind and brain connection, really there? What did I not learn in medical school? What can I do to get out of fight or flight and get into that rest and digest? Because it has to be a conscious, time that you spend and separate daily to really set that intention for the day. So, what do I have to do? When I really started to practice, so the coaching was sort of the first step because coaching is a lot about awareness. It tells you, okay, there's a circumstance, whatever it is, that causes you to have many thoughts. That thought gives you a feeling. That feeling leads to an action or no action. And then you get a result. So that's kind of the basic one awareness. But I think there's a lot more to that. First of all, you can have a feeling and then a thought, so it can go backwards. And they don't really kind of teach you that in coaching. It's sort of the straight line. And I think that's not really full truth, one. And two, like, okay, you can swap thoughts, okay, but at some point you have to know why. And the why has to be rooted in something deeper than just I want to feel a little better. You want to be rooted in something to me greater. And that's really where spirituality comes, not religion, just spirituality. Your why has to be purpose and love and gratitude and hope. All that comes from, again, a greater thing that you maybe believe in. So, when we do that, then, it starts changing. And that's how I started with meditation and Reiki and energy and all this stuff. That's how it kind of, went on. So that's really where the steps.
No, that's incredible. And when you talk about becoming like a certified life coach, what was your experience with it? What has been like fulfilling on that journey as you help others? Like, is there any particular positive stories, if you will, that have come out of it that you would like to share?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, we each have to sort of decide we want to change. You can't force feed wellness. I mean, that's something I learned. And I think we want to always help, which is very good. We want to help and put all this energy, hours. It's important. I'm not saying not to help others, but I think we have to start with the self. When we heal ourselves, when we are the example, when we lead with, true gratitude, compassion, integrity, and we are the example, then other people start feeling permission to do the same. Some people get curious, and then you truly can help by in a way inspire, and also if they're ready, you can guide them if they want that. So I think the most important thing is not so much like, oh, what do people do, but like, what are you doing yourself to really get to a better place? Because when you heal yourself, you actually affect the world and you affect others in a positive way.
That's so true. And you and I have certainly had conversations about just like the concept of energy. So could you please elaborate on just energy in general? I'm going to give you the floor for that.
Yeah, I mean, we're all energy. Einstein said it, Tesla said it. We are energetic beings. We get uncomfortable as physicians, and even if you're not a physician, about like energy, but when our heart is beating, it is doing so because there's that electric and magnetic, charges happening at the level of the nerdy cells, when there's little channels that are potassium and sodium. I mean, they are moving back and forth and causing contraction of muscles and all of these hormonal interactions by energy being exchanged at the cellular level. And we can feel that. I mean, we're electromagnetic beings, just like the earth has like an electromagnetic, field, so do we. The electric is our mind, our thoughts. They're electric. They're not physical, right? Like they're electric things, let's call them. And our heart is a magnetic, thing, place, and become electromagnetic. And we can feel that. If we walk into a room and somebody is grumpy pants, you feel that. If somebody is joyful and happy, you feel that. And it starts to actually affect you. The research shows within 5 minutes of being in proximity with somebody else, you start picking up their mood. And actually, that's their energy. So we affect each other. It is sort of the same way when you have a basket of apples and one spoils, everything else spoils around it. So that's sort of us. If we're all putrid and negative, we're going to affect everybody around us. But if we're happy and shiny, like an apple, all the other ones are going to be happy and shiny. So we have to realize how, we are affected. The moon affects us, affects the water. I mean, like you see the tides. There's no debate on how the tides change with the moon. Well, we're also 70% water. It affects us. There's energy, gravity, there's different things that happen. And it's not something to fear, it's just something to get curious perhaps about and understand. There's a lot of power to that. Because if you understand how to change energy, how to when we get depleted, how to re-energize, how to clean your energy, because we pick up all this energy from other people that could be negative or weighing us down, how we're going to feel much lighter. So when we understand that there's not just a physical that we can fix, and there's not just a mental we can fix, but there's an energetic component to our being, it's kind of like another tool that we can use to feel better and get to wellness or get to disease much faster either way.
No, absolutely. And speaking of like some similar concepts, but as I mentioned before, you are a keynote speaker and you talk about wellness, you talk about just one's well being as well as your burnout journey. Becoming a keynote speaker, what has that journey been like being so passionate about these lived experiences and being able to share them with others?
I think the power of story is huge. We all, can hear somebody else's story and say, "Oh my God, I went through that too," or like that happened to you. I thought I was alone. And, people say, "Oh, that's so courageous or vulnerable to say what happened." I'm like, well, yay, nay. I mean, I just think it's like, well, that's what happened. I'm happy to share it because if I went through pain, and I did, if I went through challenges, and I have, what did I learn from that? Like, how can I turn that into purpose and help other people maybe make their painful journey a little shorter or not as long and painful? So, how can I use my pain into some purpose that is greater than just for me to get better for me? It's like, how can we help others? So, I think by sharing stories, sharing my writing, that's really how, sort of I got there anyway. People ask me, like, how? Well, I just write, I just share, and then through mostly LinkedIn platform, just sharing my articles, my stories, my posts, not AI generated, but truly from the heart. And there's nothing wrong with AI. I'm just saying, for me, I want to do it from the heart. And so that brings people in, that gets people curious and say, oh, okay, like you're human, you're not a robot. And how can we connect? And I think that's a beautiful thing about humanity is connection, sharing emotions, not hiding in our emotions and not suppressing them, because that also leads to disease. When our emotions are neglected, suppressed, ignored, that is a lot of disease that I see, every single day that causes, so like you hold out to anger, you don't forgive people, you have that resentment. I mean, that becomes real disease. So when we understand that our emotions affect us physically for sure, and spiritually and mentally, we can start again using these tools to get to a better place that may not need medications and surgeries and things like that. they're important, but there's other ways to get there just by awareness, just by processing and acknowledging our humanity and realizing human beings have emotions. And I think when we don't ignore that part that is so important, then we can get to a better place.
I think that's a really good point that you bring up too. Like in the beginning of that conversation was how powerful storytelling is and how it truly can just even inspire or help somebody along their journey. That's something like at least on this podcast, I do think it's so important when you talk about feeling like emotions and actually sharing that. Sometimes when people would come up to you after maybe you finished a speech and how vulnerable you are, but I do think that there's something we could all relate to as far as like experiencing challenges in life and issues. And like on this podcast, it's not like just all positivity, but it is the fact of reality that life sometimes does throw us curveballs, but being able to overcome that. How did you overcome certain points in your life if it was a challenge that you had to overcome? But sharing that, because I do think it can be an inspiration to somebody else if they're going through something. So I'm really happy that you mentioned that. And the one thing I wanted to ask you is besides being a keynote speaker, you had also mentioned, and this is kind of going off on a little bit of a tangent, but just out of curiosity, being in medicine now alongside with AI coming like full force. It's already been here, of course. But what are your thoughts just on AI right now in the field of medicine?
Oh, there's a whole thought of like, does it have its own consciousness? Is it conscious? There's all of that. But I do think it's just like any other tool. It can be there to help us. And it's just like money. What do we use money for? Do we use it for sex trafficking, or do we build schools and feed people that really need it? Do we use the internet again for the same purpose, for good or for bad, to connect with people that are far away, or do we use it to berate people and be rude to people and put people down and bully them? I mean, what are we using the internet for? Do we use AI for the same purpose, to make us more efficient with things, to help us, get some information that we need, to streamline some processes? There's many applications that I don't even know yet all of it that can have the potential, but how are we using it? We put the questions, we put the queries of like what we wanted to do for us and help us with. But again, are we using it for what purpose? So it has to go back to really us. Like, yes, it's there, but we are driving how we use it and to what effect and to what, final outcome. And really, so it really is on us to truly be the more conscious beings and realize how will we use it. And it's not going to replace people. The internet didn't replace people, but sure, it replaced maybe a phone book that is physical. But the same thing with this is like, how can we just use it to help us and help us? We actually evolve and get more information and get the right information to help us all.
No, absolutely. And speaking of medicine, something really exciting is going to be coming up in the fall. You are a keynote speaker at a healthcare summit, and that's going to be including or alongside, I think, Impact Activators and the Loving Consortium with Dr. Gupta. I'm just so curious about a couple things. Your passion for healthcare, but if in fact you could change something in healthcare, what would it be? So, those two questions.
Yeah, I think if we could change something is realizing, love should be at the core of every thought, decision, and action we do. Like it should not be fear, it should not be, trauma. We like promote the trauma amongst ourselves and to our colleagues and nurses and this competition. I mean, we really should remember our role if we are to heal people is to do everything with love, is to realize, get out of this fear and scarcity and to really be in love. And that's why I love a loving organization consortium, because these are the leaders that are not just talking about like, oh yeah, love fluffy fluffy, but it's like, what are we doing? What have we done? Yes, it can work. Yes, it can be cost effective. Yes, it can have great impact. To lead with love, not to lead with ego and again scarcity and traumatizing people, because the way, as we all know, the system is right now, it is quite broken and is hurting people. And the system is not outside. People like to kind of, oh, outside the system, the administrator. No, no. Like we are all part of it. When we take responsibility and radical responsibility that we are part of it, that the change doesn't happen by changing outside, is really changing ourselves, then that's when truly change happens, on a major scale. So, you know, for us to remember our truth of who we are truly, truly, which is love and peace and joy, and we're interconnected, that would really be, where we start. And I hope we continue to awaken, we continue to change and let go of sort of that old paradigm of separation and fear.
No, I love that. And I love the fact that not only do you practice medicine, but then you're also, like I said, you're a keynote speaker for just different speaking engagements, but bringing to light certain things that need to be worked on, but then also sharing your passion. I mean, the moment that I met you, I already saw like just the passion that you have for healthcare, being able to help people in general, different collaborations that you're affiliated with too as well. So I just wanted to bring that up, and that'll be this fall. So that's really exciting coming up. In addition, you also speak about like within your keynote speaking, just the concept of self care. So if you could maybe just elaborate on that and how you incorporate that into your life.
Yeah, self-care is not selfish, it's not narcissistic, it is like essential. And it's not about just going to the spa or whatever people have in their mind. I mean, self-care is about truly living like in alignment, truly like doing the work to grow and heal. I mean, that is like self care, is to really take care of your own needs. Your own needs are to live like in truth and alignment, and to stop the people pleasing. First of all, realize, are you a people pleaser? And if you do realize that, like, what are you going to do to not give all your energy away and like bring it back to you? Because you can't do anything if you're depleted, and it's going to cause major health issues anyway. So realize all this giving of energy will have physical consequences to your health. So realize, what do you need to do for yourself? Where are you giving away your energy, your power, truly? What do you want to do differently? What is your relationship again with time? Oh, I don't have time for this or that. You have plenty of time. And that time for you has to be sacred and non-negotiable. Sacred where you do it daily, where whatever it is for you to get to a better place of introspection and calmness and joy, you got to do it and schedule it. You've got to have that journaling time, prayer, meditation, whatever you like to call it. You don't have to get attached to the label. Just that time for you, that time for exercise, for movement, for connection with friends, family, for going outside and getting a little sunlight so that we're not all vitamin D deficient and depressed. So we need to understand that time is absolutely like essential. It is should be non-negotiable. And if you are negotiating or neglecting it, then you have to ask yourself why. Why are you not putting yourself at the top of the list? And why are you, again, doing this for everybody else or not even taking care of yourself, even if you're not doing it for other people? What does that say about you and how much you truly love yourself? Because at the end of the day, if you don't think you are the most valuable, you are worth it, then we have to kind of really work on those beliefs that you're not enough, that you're not good enough, that you're not worthy. And, probably that came in from childhood, these things are traumas, things, beliefs that are, you know, given to us by the people that maybe are not in a great place. But now that we're adults, because I think most of us people listening are adults, then we got to decide, what are we going to do with these false stories that we believed? What am I going to do different so that I believe I am worthy of taking care of my mind, my mental health, my body, my spirit? Like, why am I not doing that? I mean, there's a reason why we do something or we don't do something. So we need to figure out why and then figure out what we're going to do differently.
No, that's such a good point. And I think it's about like we're all so busy today and it's like go, go, go. But to be able sometimes just to take some like kind of time out and reassess certain things that do need to get done, but then also, like you said, prioritizing yourself. Like for me, it's exercise in the morning that either starts my day off right, or if I don't do it, I do feel different. It's not like saying you have to exercise every day, but I do feel different when I don't. And so I do think it's important to take time out of your day to focus on yourself sometimes. And as you mentioned, it's not necessarily like selfish, but it is taking time for yourself. So your glass is full so you could help others. So I love how you mentioned that. And I wanted to shift from career over to family. But when we talk about your two girls, like what have they just taught you about life?
I think they're definitely my biggest teachers. I think the children are, since they're babies, our biggest teachers about what presence is, what patience is, what joy and awe and curiosity is, and how we lose that and how we should not lose that. We should continue that. We should, as you have asked me many times through this conversation, I'm curious. I mean, that is such a beautiful thing that many people don't ever ask in their whole life. They're not curious. They're just like, oh, whatever. But you have that curiosity. You ask deeper questions. You lean in. I mean, literally, figuratively, and emotionally. So that is a beautiful thing that children teach us to ask why. If you've ever been around little kids, they ask why 1,000 times, and after 1,000, they ask another 1,000 times why. Adults tend to say like, oh, stop it, or like dismiss that, and that is such a tragedy because we should like encourage that, to keep asking why and why and why, because we got to do that in our own life. Go down the why 7 times and get to the root cause of why you're doing something or you're not. So kids really teach us, everything. They teach us at some point too, like, are we gonna also, again, kind of going back to that, are we gonna live in alignment? Are we going to live in truth? Like, if you say something that you're going to do, like, are you going to do it? Or do you just say it and not follow through? I mean, that is huge for them to learn that it's safe, that's a safe environment, that they can trust that what you say is what's going to happen. That is safety. That's emotional safety, psychological safety. So you're teaching that to children, and it's teaching you to, again, live in alignment. So it's a two-way street for sure. I mean, they teach us, we teach them, but it's not just one way, like top down. It's this way. And it really is about humility, is about, like coming down to the floor level with them and not just talking above them. Like, get down on the floor, talk, play with them, look at them in the eye level, just like you would anybody else, and really be present. And again, it's sort of going full circle in this whole conversation, but children really are huge, huge teachers. They are here. I really do believe they chose us to be their parents if you're a parent. And they chose us because there's lessons, there's things that we have to work through, and they're here to remind us and help us and do that work. And it's up to us to decide, are we going to take that commitment that we made to do the work, or we're just going to live passively and status quo and not growing. So we get to decide, what we do in this lifetime. Are we going to grow, or are we just going to exist and just sort of, take up air, and that's what we want to do? Or do we want to grow, contribute, feel all the rainbow of emotions, feel our humanity, really know what it is to be human, not just sad and mad and glad. It's like everything, like excitement and like disappointment and rage, and I mean, all these emotions is what makes us human. And I think when we embrace that, our life is actually much richer.
That's so true. I mean, excellent points. The one thing I wanted to point out, because I've been thinking about this a lot lately, and it deals with this sense of curiosity, but like this childlike imagination that I don't want to speak for everybody, but it's like almost as if sometimes we tend to lose it as we go through life. And it's almost like whether it is starting something like entrepreneurship or something, like, oh, I don't know if I could do that because I may embarrass myself. Like, what do you actually think the root is as to why we sometimes either lose or that childlike imagination fades of asking more questions or at least trying new things and imagining things as we go through life?
Yeah, I mean, we are socialized to stop asking why. Again, when parents are even in school, like, kids are like, why? But why? Like, they raise their hand, and then they don't have time, right? Like, to answer all these whys because you have other children. So you say, stop. So then you pretty soon start to just close, 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 that door of wonder and on curiosity. And that could be in schools, that could be with parents, with adults. Because again, we live in this idea that we don't have enough time to answer these questions. But if we realize there's plenty of time that is actually more time effective to answer the questions at the time, then later just suppress, like, and really traumatize children of removing that beautiful quality that they have, it's probably going to be less in therapy you're going to spend, by just like not suppressing them then, but like letting them, like, grow this beautiful thing and not suppressing. So I think as a society, we unconsciously sort of do that to others. And we don't like when people ask why or why not. Those are tend to be the people that are like, shake up the world. They are the change makers. They are the ones that ruffle the feathers. And people love to be in the status quo. People love comfort because when we start shaking, like, the box, when we start ruffling the feathers, people get really uncomfortable really fast. And people, I hate to say, do not like discomfort. It is truly the road less traveled, like the book, of those that say, I'm going to get uncomfortable, I'm going to grow, I'm going to change. Most people are just okay like as is. Like there's no need to ruffle that feather. So they're going to tell you to stop. They're going to silence you. They're going to retaliate against you. They're going to pass you up in promotions because you're the one speaking up. I mean, there's real retaliation to people that are the change makers and the people that want to do things differently. So I kind of see why. And also, finally, women are also socialized to be nice, like, oh, don't ask those questions that are a little deeper or uncomfortable. Be nice, be quiet, be a good girl. Like this baloney that we tell women and little girls, especially, yeah, that kills our curiosity, that kills our need to like push boundaries a little bit and limits. So many people will just want to be the good girl because that's how you get love by being the good girl, so it's not inconveniencing the parents, so or embarrassing them or whatever is going on with them. So we got to realize there's many layers to this why we lose it. And then we got to decide, well, maybe I was oppressed, but like, do I want to live like that my whole life? Or do I want to realize I have a voice, realize I can, like, change, I can do things. It's going to take courage and it's going to ruffle feathers and upset people, but at the end of the day, how do you want to live your life? Like people pleasing, small, quiet, or do you want to live fully and like step into like just a room with confidence? There's a difference.
That's beautifully said. And my next question is, what is next for Diana?
Oof. This year has definitely, I mean, every year, well, like the last few years, I started, with my word for the year. Well, last year was expansion, which definitely, woo, did that. And this year was healing, and healing has really come in the form of alignment, and alignment in many, 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 many ways, every way. Like, there was not one place where I could like sort of hide anymore and not pay attention to the things that were sort of festering and not resolved and not talked about and not dealt with. And, I left my job in January, and then I moved to Colombia for 6 months. I just came back in July, and I purposely didn't work during that time for like half of it, and that was really important. And I know many people will never be able to have that much time to just sit with yourself, but even like a day or a week where you can sit with yourself and you don't have distractions, you're gonna start looking at every facet, hopefully, of your life and realize like, is this what I'm going to tolerate? Is this what I want? Am I going to just keep going in the status quo, or I'm going to do something different? Because now I have the awareness, because when you're quiet and you don't have the distractions, you can look at all the painful parts. Once you have a little awareness, what are you going to do? So this has really been a year of that healing, that awareness, that rebuilding, and rebuilding is not like, oh, you're here and then you start building from the top. No, it's that has to crumble. Things have to crumble. Things have to get really painful. And then you start rebuilding. And all those phases are very painful. It's a lot of energy work. But I wouldn't have it any other way because, again, going back to my children, that's what I want to teach them, that, you've got to do the work, even when it's painful. You don't step away because it's painful. You actually face it. You face that fire and then you still do it. Even when it's uncomfortable and painful and there's tears, like that's okay. Like that probably means you should be doing it, not running away from it. So hopefully I can, definitely teach my kids and do a lot of rebuilding this year and alignment and, really pruning people, situations, events, life, things that again are not serving me, that are not lighting me up, are taking a lot of energy, and I'm giving a lot of my energy that for things, people that maybe are not sort of like understanding my worth, and that's okay. That's sort of what they can do, but I don't have a control over the people. I don't have control over me. So how do I choose to act, react, do? That is my choice, and we have that power. So I want to definitely be in line with that. So long answer, but it's definitely about rebuilding. It's definitely about doing those projects, like we're a little scared. We're like in our like vision board, but we want to do them, and they're big and they're fun and they're bold. But it's really time about like stepping into that full version of, really being out there, really sharing, whether it's, writing or speaking or many, many avenues, but really, really, taking those steps and doing those scary things or those big dreams and just taking it one step at a time, one breath at a time sometimes, and just, 1 minute by 1 minute at times. That's okay.
I love everything about that. Like what you were talking about, even with taking quiet time, like the two word or two phrases, if you will, was like quiet time. I picked up from that and like the vision board. And I just recently, well, relatively recently, went through that after I finished my academic program. It was like literally, it was like turning the page to your next chapter, so to speak. But I spent time just taking walks in the neighborhood. I know this sounds silly. I've shared this before, but no headphones, listening to nature, just birds chirping, everything. And there's something to be said about the clarity of thought that happens when you kind of tune everything out. You're like one with yourself and you're just thinking about what could life be in this next chapter. And the vision board, I have mine actually like right next to me. And I think vision boards are very, very powerful. I mean, whether it's quotes, whether it's literally envisioning certain like scenery or whatever it is, but I have legitimately seen certain things. They may not have come fully like perfect, exactly the way the picture is, but it's like, whoa, that really happened. So I'm so happy you mentioned vision boards. But to wrap this incredible podcast episode up, I would love for you to share whether it's a positive message, it could be a quote or perhaps a phrase with our community today.
I just realized, like, again, if you want to change the world, you got to start with yourself. Like, you have the power to change the world by changing you, and that is a beautiful thing. That is like such an empowering thing. We don't have to be victims of the circumstance of the world. Like, how we see the world is how our internal state is. So realize it's not outside. It's not all the bad outside. It's, what's inside of us. How are we seeing the lens of the world? And that is very, very, like I said, empowering, and gives us a lot of control, and actually can lower our anxiety by knowing like we have control how we see everything and what we do once we see everything. Like, what are we going to do? So, you know, don't get in despair and gloom, and like that can be hard when we get bombarded with so many messages. But then again, turn that off, turn that noise off, use that time to focus on the good and focus on things that make you hopeful, make you excited. Stop the fight or flight with all these messages or people that drain you or scare you or worry you. I mean, like, why are you there listening to these messages of people or on the media or whatever it is? Like, turn and like steer your boat to where you want to be. Stop looking at things you don't want. Start looking at things that you do want, and like, again, steer that boat there and like focus, your time, energy, intention in that. And then you'll see that if you focus on that, that's going to become that. If you focus on the negative, everything's going to be that. So we have a lot of power. Remember that. Don't let other people tell you you don't, because you always do.
Excellent, excellent message. Dr. Diana Londoño, thank you so much for being on this podcast episode. You have shared just a wealth of knowledge and wisdom from your experience, from your journey, and truly, truly grateful to have you on today. So I truly wish you the best.
Thank you, Courtney, and thank you for, leading with, just the hard, beautiful energy I always told you, and your curiosity and your, willingness to learn and grow. And it's just truly a breath of fresh air. So thank you for everything you do. I really appreciate you.